Good morning, welcome to Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket, George DiGianni Train Station Fitness Show. My guest in the studio, Morris Brosette. Good morning, young man.
Good morning, George.
So one of the things that I've discussed in years past, and I've not brought back many of these things because I feel as though, even though I'm totally wrong here, I feel as though what's been discussed has been discussed many times over. People don't want to hear it. But there are new listeners, new goals, that, getting a refresher on some of this information is really, really important. Some of the information we're bringing you today is not new information. Trainers that are worth anything are already aware of this information, and even you listening to the show today are probably aware of it, but are you using this information to achieve your goal as fast as you'd like to, or at all? And what am I discussing? We're discussing today the benefits of repetitions when you exercise. How do you know how many repetitions to use in each exercise for each set to attain your specific goal? Women tend to hear, oh, you want to be toned, you got to do 20 plus repetitions. Men always hear, well, you got to do 10 to 12 repetitions for 3 sets. But why? Where did this come from? It's a generic protocol. Or is it?
Absolutely. It is kind of a generic protocol, and we know this, and
Yeah.
we've taught people this for years. But unfortunately, people still wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they turn on channel 278, and they see the guy,
Yeah.
getting lean and mean and shredded with the
Right.
ab roller or whatever. And that's where all this falls and it comes into play.
Right.
So, and you're right. We've talked about this till our heads explode to people. But I find myself literally still today having to explain to people, no, you're not going to get big. And especially in the world of endurance athletes, it's not just women. Typically, back when I was personal training full time, you were doing the same thing. The first thing we would hear from our female new clients is, well, I don't want to get big.
I want to be toned.
Right, I want to be toned.
I'm a model.
I want the Pilates body.
Did Pilates exist when I trained? I don't think so.
But yeah, it did. They were saying that. They were the yoga and Pilates body.
Oh yeah,
But,
actually it did.
yeah, right. But there's this fear around lifting weights, and there's just tons of misinformation. And it's the same thing that goes along the lines of the ab dolly or the ab roller, thinking that you can crunch your way to a 6-pack.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
And there's just that misinformation with lifting weights and with the rep ranges. And you need to have a variety of this. We know this. We know this in program design. But it's the re-education of people, and it's almost like that constant reminder
Yeah.
of getting a hug from your mother just to let you know everything's okay.
Right.
They need to have that affirmation, that reaffirmation that yes, it's okay for you to lift 5 reps maximum, ladies and men.
So it's so just to paraphrase, it's a great idea to bring information back onto the show for you to hear from different voices, like Mo was saying. So it reminds you of what your intended goal is. Most people want fat loss, but how do you do it? Are you supposed to be limited to 3 sets of each exercise for each body part with 10 to 12 reps? Maybe not. So we'll talk more about that with Mo Brosette. I call you Mo all the time, so we're sticking with Mo Brosette. It's 7:05 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. 7:12 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. Davey, good job on that ticker. Morris Brosette in the studio. Eat right and play. What is it?
Close. Eatrealandmove.com.
Okay. I think I like mine better.
Right.
Eatrealandmove.com, Morris Brosette's website. We're talking today about people who have a specific goal of fat loss, even just maintenance, strength. It's important to know how many repetitions to use when you're working out with each set of exercise to more easily achieve your specific goal. Look, it's tough enough just to eat right. It's an uphill battle for most people.
Absolutely.
The least thing we can do is maximize our time, our effort when we're exercising, and know what we're doing to try to get to our goal faster, or even to just achieve it in the first place.
Right.
And so I wanted to change things up as far as the order I thought that we might go in today. I think we first need to understand how a muscle works when it's placed under a load, placed under a certain tension, and also for certain periods of time. So we have a power lifter that often exercises in the rep range of 1 to 5 repetitions.
Correct.
Now, we'll discuss that. Then I also want to talk about females that could use that. I want to stick with this mindset for a moment, because this is not the majority of our listeners. They're not power lifters.
No, not at all.
But it's important that you understand what this rep range does and why it's important for certain goals.
Right. And it's not just for the powerlifters, like you said, and it is for women, it is for elderly people, and believe it or not, it is for endurance athletes. I recently read an article that was showing or demonstrating some world-class sprinters and runners and kind of endurance athletes and their 1 rep max deadlift and or squat. And there are a couple good studies and good articles that show, or actually they talk about 2 Olympians, 2 100-meter sprinters, that before they would sprint in the Olympics would go do a 3 rep max squat. So 10 minutes before they go run to be the fastest man or woman in the world, they're in the weight room doing maximum squats. Not because they want to get strong, bigger, and it's not making them bigger. Obviously, you see them, they're lean, they're sleek. They look like most people want to look.
Right.
But what it's doing with that heavy rep range is it's creating a neural or neurological or nervous system firing. Because what people need to understand, when you're lifting super heavy, you're not just recruiting the muscle fibers that make you big or make you strong or make you lean. You're recruiting every muscle fiber that you can possibly recruit to push that load. So therefore, you're getting a bit of everything. You're getting the power, you're getting the endurance, but you're getting that neural or nervous system feeding to get those muscles fired. And that's what
let's have people kind of picture this for a moment. When someone uses this type of routine prior to an event, what they're doing is effectively warming up. They're getting the muscles ready to fire to be explosive. It's real important that people understand that.
Yep.
You're getting ready to explode. Dr. Stuart McGill talks about super stiff movements and how you have when you're in that super stiff mode, you're contracting all 400 pairs of muscles at the same time. So when you're lifting very, very heavy, there's not a muscle on your body that's not contracted in that 1 to 5 rep range.
Correct.
And so when you're about to sprint, you're using every muscle. You're not just using your lower body. And if you've not sprinted in a while and you try to do this, you'll notice the next day your chest may be sore, your back may be sore, upper back, by the way, and your lower back might be sore in addition to your legs. If you've not sprinted in a while, I don't recommend this, but this is the reason that they do these type of warm-ups. Who would have thought, let me go lift as heavy as I can right before an event?
Right.
But when you consider what it's doing, this neural adaptation and this learning and how you're going to explode and recruit every single muscle in your body when you perform an explosive event like sprinting, it makes sense.
Exactly. Absolutely. And just to clarify, and I have to use this example, and I use this for every one that I talk to about these heavy rep ranges. And this is one of those things we just have to say over and over again. This is not going to make you big. It's not. This is going to get you really strong. It's going to, like we just talked about, recruit those motor units that you need to recruit. So whether you are a female and you want to get lean, or you're an endurance athlete, like I said, I work primarily with endurance athletes now, and even the guys, their first thing is, well, I'm going to lift weight. I want to lift weights, but I don't want to get big. I understand that. But think about a collegiate or high school wrestler. You know, these guys are just insanely strong, but they still have to wrestle at 135 pounds or 145 pounds. And the best case that I like to reference is Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was 135 pounds, but this man could bench press 300 pounds. So everybody knows what Bruce Lee looks like. And they know he was lean and he was sleek, and that's what most people really want to look like. When you see fitness, you know, that's what I think of. But this little bitty man, 135 pounds, could bench press 300 pounds. And it's that strength that we're missing, right? We've got the endurance. We've got the, go for 15, 20 reps at a moderate tempo. We know how to do all that stuff, but the element that we miss out on is that heavy rep range load and how that's helping us overall. Like you said, if you don't have a whole lot of time to exercise, which most of us don't, and most of my clients don't, I give them, and we progress them into this heavy stuff. Let me clarify that also. You don't just go in and start doing a 1 rep max. You have to learn the proper technique and form first. That's first and foremost. Then you progress to doing maybe from 8 reps to 6, from 6 to 5 to 4, and then to 1 rep max. So you've taught your body how to do that, like you said, that bracing, that tightening that Dr. McGill was talking about, where everything is firing synergistically at one time to stabilize and or move you through that range of motion. And that's what we're after. I mean, you want to talk about preventing bone density loss and osteoporosis, lift heavy weights.
So I think that not one female listening to the show today actually got that. I don't think it's sunk in. It's just of course my idealistic view, but I don't believe women get that. Now there's you have the women who want to be toned, and it goes against everything that they've read in a magazine.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know there's not the majority of the people that are women listening to this show, but we still have about 40% women. So if you're listening, to help with bone density, to help you get strong so you can use the rep range you want of the 20 plus reps, you'll be able to use heavier weight with 20 plus reps if you want, or you'll be able to go longer with those heavier weights. And you say, well, George, hold on. You're not listening to me. I don't want heavier or bigger muscles. And we would then say, well, hold on, you're not listening to us. You cannot get big with the 1 to 5 rep range. Is that true, though, for the women who have the soccer legs? If they bend down to pick up their baby and stand up, all of a sudden their legs grew an inch.
Yes, that's true.
Right. It's just very important for girls who know they have the ability to build muscle fast to know what 1 to 5 reps means.
Right. And I tell people this the same thing. I said, listen, unless you are some physiological anomaly to nature, the human species, you're not going to get big. And one of the ways that I kind of ease people into doing something like this is, let's do 2 sets 1 time a week, and just start with that. Just to kind of, it's baby steps. Just to get that comfort zone of, look, you're not going to get big. I promise you. Watch. Let's do 1 set this week. Next week, let's do 2 sets.
Right.
But you don't have to do it all the time. And that's the other thing. When you lift heavy, you cannot do this like people lift 4 or 5 days a week, because you're taxing. This is called neural training. It's not metabolic training where we're trying to gain muscle or gain that fitness. We're taxing our nervous system. So when you tax your nervous system with a heavy load like that, it takes a minimum of 72 hours for you to recover fully from that bout of exercise.
So someone says, but hold on, I like to exercise. Can't I just go in the gym the next day and use a different rep range?
You can.
Or just go walk.
Yeah, go walk. Do something more like active recovery.
Right. Active recovery is probably the better protocol.
Absolutely.
So let's also say this, and we'll finish up on the 1 to 5 rep range. It's important for people to know that when you work out in this rep range, 1 to 5 reps, that the mindset of getting stronger is that if you use this rep range, you need more sets. So in the beginning of the show, I talked about 3 sets. That's like the generic protocol people are on. But to get stronger, you would use more than 3 sets in most cases, depending on where you are when you're beginning this type of routine. And so not only that, but you're going to rest for about 2 to 5 minutes between sets. It's very important for you to know that, because that's when the muscle's fully recovered and says, okay, I can do another bout of that same taxing exercise. 2 to 5 minutes, if you're a busy person, you say, well, I can't just sit there, I've got to get work done. How much work can you get done on a cell phone? 2 to 5 minutes is a very, very long time to rest, but not for this type of routine. It's actually the appropriate time to rest.
Right, exactly. And also, you can do other things in that 2 to 5 minutes. You could do some ease, like core stabilization movements. You could do a plank. You could do...
Is that the right idea for someone who may be performing a very heavy squat on their next set, where they need all of that?
You could do it for, I usually have people do it for maximum 30 seconds.
Oh,
and
okay.
They do it, I'll have them do like a max set of squat or deadlift, and then go into that 30-second plank, and then have them rest. But that 30 seconds is added, that's within that rest period. So
let's talk about what most people are familiar with, and that is the mid-rep range, where we talk about 6 to 10 reps, not so much familiar with you in most cases, but the 8 to 12 reps, that's where most men are familiar with. It's like, bodybuilder, big muscles, but that's the mindset, right?
Absolutely. Concentration curls.
Concentration curls, and one of the things we're not targeting on this show is your eccentric phase or even a concentric phase timing
Yeah.
how fast you move, which we won't touch on this show. We can do it for another time. So discuss the mid-range, if you don't mind, for about a minute or so.
Yeah, so the mid-range is that kind of 8 to 10 or 8 to 12 rep range, and that's typically designed for the building muscle, like you said, for the bodybuilder, for the guy that wants to look good at the pool. But it's also important to understand that you can do this rep range and not get big, right? This also still helps with strength to a degree. Yes, you are going to build a little bit of muscle fiber, but it's not to the degree that, again, you see in the magazines.
Yeah.
And we have to reiterate this to folks all the time. They eat a very specific diet. They lift a very specific way. They do very specific things to look that way.
It's their lifestyle.
That's,
They'll go home and
that's
take a nap.
Exactly.
Right.
They go home and sleep. They do protein shakes. They do all this stuff to make them look that way.
They eat needles.
Right. Exactly. That's not what you're doing. So, no, doing a workout for a whole workout of 8 to 12 reps is not going to make you big.
Yeah.
Can it? Yes, if you do it properly and with that design in mind. So,
when we talk about bone density for women, any of these rep ranges we discussed today will help you with increasing your bone density. It's just that some of them will help you at a sooner rate. Taking calcium and drinking milk is a bunch of bull. I don't care if you do it or not. You want to build your bones faster than anything you can possibly do, use resistance training. I've mentioned this. If I've mentioned it once, I've mentioned it 1,000 times. I'll say it again. When you load the bone, that is when you perform resistance training, not 5,000 reps, but anywhere from 1 repetition to 15 repetitions. This is where, with weight that is taxing, not 15 and you stop, but you could really do 10 more.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
That's the key.
important. That's the key. But where you can't perform 15 and a half if you wanted to. You release calcium into the blood. So when you load the bone, you release calcium into the blood, and then you get this reuptake of calcium back into the bone. Oh, by the way, your bones get stronger. They get more dense. And it's really, really important to know. You say, well, I don't want to get big, but do you want to be healthy?
Right.
You know what the #1 fracture is in older people? And the reason is they don't exercise, number 1. Number 2, since they have less balance, they fall, they get hip fractures.
Exactly. Yep. Something we
Well,
talk about
hold
all
on.
the
Let me
time.
take my drugs from my doctor and drink a lot of milk. That's
Right.
not going to do it.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like we go towards, and I was reading an article about this morning before I came on the show, about vitamin D.
Yeah.
Right?
D3.
D3. And we're about bone density and calcium and health. And I was thinking prior to coming on here, if you would just, yes, you need this, but lift weights. This is what you need.
So coming up next, we want to finish up the talk on mid-rep range. Well, who is this really for? You don't have to be a bodybuilder. I use this rep range. I'm not a bodybuilder. I've lost 25, 30 pounds over the last 6 years or so, but I still use this rep range. I use a lot more reps. I don't really do the 1 to 5 reps, but I may start incorporating that now that we're talking about it on the show and start training myself a little differently. But what's the rest intervals? Why are we doing this? What's the goal? And who is going to benefit most from this rep range?
Right.
Is it more female? Is it more male? Or is it just the goal that you will achieve from using this rep range? It's not gender specific.
Exactly.
Right. So we'll talk more with Mo coming up next. 727 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket.
So
734 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. George DiGianni Train Station Fitness Show. I'm here with Mo Grosset, and we're discussing rep ranges. When you exercise, how do you know how many reps to use, how many sets to use for your particular goal? And if you're working out in a certain rep range and you're not attaining the goal that you want, you're not achieving it and holding on to it, then you're probably not using either the right rep range, the right amount of sets, or you're not creating any confusion for your muscles. When you get used to a particular routine, your body starts saying, okay, well now what? You know, there was a study that came out from Cooper many years ago that talked about people who exercise 3 days a week will only maintain where they currently are. You will not move ahead. You won't advance.
Right.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. If you like where you are, you work out 3 days a week, I guess that's okay. Depending on the type of working out you're doing. If it's not taxing enough, then you don't really maintain. And so 4 and 5 days are certainly much more beneficial. Right now we're talking about, we handled the 1 to 5 rep range and all the importance of that for everyone, regardless of your goal. We're talking about the mid-rep range. We talked about who that can benefit and how it can benefit, and we want to mention that again. I think it's really important. You know, you can be the bodybuilder at this level, but you can also be the person who just wants to lose fat.
Right, absolutely. And just really quickly, going back to that the women's question of my legs feel big, my pants don't fit right.
Right.
Remember, there is a bit of inflammation that occurs after every hard weight training session. It's the same thing with running a half marathon or even a 5K really hard. When we finish an Ironman, we usually gain about 5 pounds to 7 pounds after the race because of systemic inflammation. You're
Right.
not getting bigger. I didn't just gain 7 pounds from racing an
Right.
Ironman, but it's inflammation.
Right.
That's good for your body. So that big leg or that tight pants feeling, oftentimes when you're lifting correctly and you're changing those variables that you just talked about, it's inflammation in your body that will go away.
And so there's something else to expand upon when you talk about a woman's legs feeling bigger.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, maybe their legs didn't have enough muscle and bone density, so therefore they needed to be bigger. Bigger does not mean big.
Right.
Secondly, what you'll often find when you gain muscle and you needed to gain muscle, this is for anyone, you'll find that your shirts or your pants are tighter in certain areas that you're not used to, therefore you feel big. However, are you aware of the areas that are not tight anymore?
Exactly.
Right?
We tend to focus on the other.
Exactly. So I think that's really important for us to be aware of.
Yeah.
So mid-range, excellent. What is the mid-range? Again, go through it again. Who is it for? Who benefits the most?
Right.
Talk about sets.
Yeah, the mid-range is 8 to 12 and sometimes upwards of 15, but typically 8 to 12. It really benefits anyone. These sets and rep ranges are not gender specific.
Mm-hmm.
They're goal oriented specific. So if you're looking to maximize muscle growth, hypertrophy, then you'd want to stick with this 8 to 12 rep range. Now, I don't mean stick with this, but this is where you'd want to spend a majority of your time.
Right.
You do need to vary it. That's where you're going to get the most growth. If you want to have a big chest, if you want to have big guns or whatever, you want to stick within this 8 to 12 rep range.
But if you're a female and you're using 8 to 12, hold on, you just scared me away.
I know, but that's what I said. If you stay there, and if
Right.
you lift very specifically, like I said earlier, with specific goals,
Right.
it's the same thing as that heavy 1 to 5 rep range. If I take a female and I take her through a workout where I'm going 8 to 10 reps,
Yeah.
3 sets is all they need, you're not going to get big from that.
Sure.
One workout is not going to make you big. Again, unless you are some physiological anomaly to human nature, it's not going to happen.
So we talked in the beginning of the show of 1 to 5 rep range is for the power lifter and people who just need to be stronger. You're not going to get big. You'll just get strong and use
Right.
about 5 repetitions.
Yes.
Five sets, excuse me.
Yeah.
In the mid-rep range, 8 to 12 repetitions, sometimes 8 to 15. How many sets? Is it just 3 sets typically for per body part?
Typically 3 to 4, 4
3 to
max.
4, exactly.
Just because, again, with this, most people are going to be exercising, weight training that is, about 3 days a week. I like to split it, and most people do the same thing, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, total body routine. So you're going to need, the maximum is 4 sets to allow for proper recovery of the muscles and the nervous system.
And what do you get from this? You get strength,
You get
you
strength.
get bone density,
And you get growth.
fat loss.
Yep, fat loss is key as well.
Right?
Yeah,
What are we
absolutely.
talking about on recovery, rest between sets on this mid-rep range?
That mid-rep range is anywhere from 60 to 90 seconds. But again, this is the great opportunity to do supersets. So you're doing exercises back to back. And I'll even do 3. Like I'll do a lower body, like a dumbbell squat. This is where I'll get more functional versus just strength. So I
What's
might
a
do
dumbbell squat look like?
where you're holding a dumbbell in each hand by your side, then you drop down to the traditional squat position back up. So I might have someone do a set of 8 to 10 squats with dumbbells and then drop down into a lat pull down or something, just an upper body movement.
So you're not really resting, but you're
No.
resting the muscle you just used.
Correct.
Or group of muscles. And so as we get older, we lose strength. We lose muscle, which makes us lose strength, but we also gain body fat. Is this rep range most beneficial for people 30 above, 40 above, 50 above? Is there an age?
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, especially as you get older. Yes, as you get older, this is where that 1 to 5 and 8 to 12 is really where I would spend a majority of the time as I get older. Because as we age, we don't lose endurance, we lose strength, power, and bone density because we don't lift anymore.
We tend to think, though, and when I say we, I'm 46 years old now, and I'll group myself in with the majority of the people that believe we are just as fit or can get back in 2 weeks to being just as fit as we once were when we were in our teens or when we were in our mid-20s.
Right.
And that falsehood is what brings about injury, disappointment.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the big thing, too. People will take a break or they
Yeah.
get busy with life.
Yeah.
Then they come back into it, and they aren't as strong as they used to be or have the endurance that they used to be. And that's where we see the fall off. 80% of people don't fail in a strength training program when they first start. They fail when they have to take a break for whatever reason. Then they come back. They get discouraged, and they think, well, like you said, I can't push as much as I used to. I'm not as strong as I was. And after 2 weeks, they get discouraged and they quit. You have to understand, you will get strong again. Might you not ever get back to that potential? Absolutely. That depends on your lifestyle, a lot of other variables. But you will gain that strength back. So you have to stick with it. But you have to give it time.
I think it's a difficult one for again, people who used to be fit. And you wind up turning into that weekend warrior, don't you?
Yeah.
Right? It becomes disappointing, and then you get hurt. You have these pulls and pains and muscle spasms, and you just want to give up and say, what the heck's going on? That's where a coach like you comes in, a trainer comes in and paces you.
Yep.
And gives you the results you want.
Yeah. And that's why, and I was going to mention this, that's where the injury comes in. Because again, we think, and we hear this all the time, I wrestled in junior high.
Yeah.
Well, buddy, you're 46 years old. That day is gone.
Yeah.
You're not that flexible. You've been sitting in a chair for the last 20-something years.
Yeah.
That mobility is not there right now. So you have to be very cautious. And this is where I'm talking to the guys the most. Set your ego aside. Don't take your testosterone just yet. Learn the mechanics of the movement and work on your mobility first, and then start to increase, because that's where a majority of the injuries come into play.
Let's talk about high reps. You have
Yes.
the model who comes in, says, I don't want to get big, I don't even want to be toned, I want to be skinny fat, I want to use 1,000 reps in one set, and then I want to go home.
Right.
And then you tell her, don't even bother being here.
Right.
So high reps, are they just for models, or what is high rep range? Who is that for? What's the benefit of high reps?
Yeah. I classify high reps, and when we're talking about true high reps, I'm talking about anything really north of 25, upwards of 50 reps per set.
Right.
Now, this is where you stick to about 3 sets because of the volume of what you're doing. This is kind of the fun. This is the unknown area. We do think of the fitness models or the ladies. I just want to be toned and lean, but in actuality, if you want to grow muscle, this is an excellent rep range.
It affects testosterone, it affects growth hormone,
absolutely.
Helps you lose body fat, helps you grow some muscle.
Yep, absolutely. I'm looking at a study right now that did a comparison of 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps, which we just talked about, to the point of fatigue, versus 3 sets of 30 to 40 reps at 30% of that 1 rep max performed to the point of fatigue. And they had the exact same amount of muscular growth.
Wow.
Exactly. So we've used this in the past with clients, especially with the ladies, or especially with people that are coming back from some sort of injury that don't have the mechanics and their joints can't.
So more rehabilitative.
Yeah, more rehabilitative. And that's the other thing too. This high rep range is phenomenal for protein synthesis, not just of your muscles, but also of the connective tissue.
Protein synthesis, tell people what that means.
So basically when your body is promoting more protein growth in the connective tissue, right? So if you're coming back from like a lot of people that we used to deal with were they would go, they're weekend warriors, they go ski on the weekends in Colorado, but they don't lift the proper weight, right? They will have an ACL injury or some sort of shoulder injury, something like that. Well, doing these high rep ranges is going to allow you to still get the muscular growth and the strength, but also rebuild that connective tissue.
So we talk about this. Are people what's the main benefit? Because you and Alex, your fiance now, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Have used my exercise videos on the 21-day program, and you use my burst training, and Alex loves the burst training video. We're talking very high repetitions for that 40 or 50 seconds, and during that time, if you're performing 1 repetition per second, you're performing 40 or 50 repetitions.
Right.
And what we find is that burst training often works best if you use the heaviest weight possible during that 40 to 50 seconds, because then you get the benefit of added muscle, as well as body fat loss and hormone balance or increase. If you're using a lighter weight during that 40 to 50 seconds and your muscles are burning but not as intensely, as the heavier weight, you're probably not going to get much more muscle than you currently have, depending on if you're a person who just does the treadmill and goofy things like that, and then you go do this routine, you will gain some muscle. But if you typically work out, you might not.
Right.
Or it may get a little spike and then it comes back down because it became too used to it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to get big from this type of thing either.
Right.
Obviously. And there's another way of using this type of training that I use with my clients that don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And it's a style of training called Tabata, and it was created by a Japanese man. His last name just happens to be Tabata, and that's who they named it after. But it's doing those burst sets. So basically, what you do is you do 8 sets of 20 seconds of like a body weight squat, so no weight whatsoever, with 10 seconds rest in between, and you do that for 8 sets. So basically, you're doing 80 squats, 800 squats. I'm terrible at math.
Go ahead. I wasn't paying attention.
Right.
All I'm thinking right now is every single female listening to the show is like, hold on, I'm writing this down. Go slower.
Right.
High reps, burning weight, burning calories.
So the
do it
Tabata,
again.
Yeah, so you're doing 8 sets.
8 sets
of
how
20
many?
seconds. So your goal is to try to do 1 rep per second.
1 rep, so that's 20
So you're
times
doing
8.
20 times
160.
8. Yeah. So, and you rest 10 seconds in between.
Yeah.
So that 10 seconds is really, it feels like 2 seconds.
Sure.
By the time you get to that 4th set.
Sure.
But it's a great way to utilize that high rep range. And we use this I use this in sports. I use this with my athletes to get stronger. You can actually gain muscle if you do something like this with the intent of gaining muscle. But you can also use this rep range. You can also use this type of workout, that high rep range burst type training, if you want to maximize fat loss.
So coming up next, one of the things Mo's going to do is take you through a routine that we can benefit from by using every single rep range we discussed here today. You're going to give us 1 or 2 routines. Will it be gender specific or will it be goal specific?
This is going to be goal specific.
Coming up next with Mo, 747 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. 756 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. George DiGianni with my friend Mo Brosette. His website is eatrealandmove.com. He's going to give you 2 workouts right now, goal-specific workouts that are very, very important. We're talking about rep ranges, right? Like the beginning of the show, 1 to 5 reps, 8 to 12 or 15 reps, and then 20-plus reps or more. And the importance of varying your reps is a direct result of is a direct impact of the results you're receiving from your current workouts. And he said, look, let's put people through a couple of routines where it varies all of these rep ranges to benefit them. And so what are the goals for the first routine?
So the goals of the first routine are more power, right? This goes for the person who just wants to be stronger, but this also goes for people like me.
Who wants to be stronger? We're not because when you think power, you think this big, bulky person, it's just power lifter. Who else wants to be stronger like that?
Myself, as an Ironman distance triathlete, I need to be stronger. I need to be stronger to ride up a hill at mile 95 on the bike and then run a marathon fast.
Good. So hit it.
So that's me. So what we do is we go the 1 to 5 rep range. Now this is a once a week movement. This is a once a week series, right? So make sure you do start with about 5 to 10 minutes of foam rolling, and then about 5 to 10 minutes of mobility movement.
If you need to know about foam rolling, more of what that is, you can email Mo. We don't have enough time to get into it, so go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to put all this on my website at eatrealandmove.com. So the 1 to 5 rep range. So we start out with basic movements, a deadlift or a barbell squat. We're going to do a set of 5, right? Then you're going to rest for 3 to 4 minutes. Then you're going to do a set of 2 reps. And then you're going to repeat that. So you're going to do 5 reps, rest. 2 reps, rest. And then you repeat that for 5 total sets. I'm sorry, 6 total sets. So again, we're doing longer sets, but it's just that one movement. That's all you need, right? And just to quickly clarify what happens, when you do that 2 rep max like we talked about before, you're recruiting so many motor units. So if you could squat 200 pounds with 5 reps, then you do that 2 rep max, which is going to be heavier. You're going to go back to that 5 reps, and instead of squatting 200 pounds, you're going to squat about 205 to 210. So instead of getting weaker through the set in the workout, you're going to get stronger.
Okay, next.
So that's how we're going to do that. We're going to do something like that. Then you're going to do the exact same thing with like a lat pull down. And then you're going to do the exact same thing with like a bench press or a dumbbell press. That's it. 3 movements once a week. Then you move on, right? Aside from that type of protocol, I would go into that high rep range of 30 to 40 reps. So I would do this first heavy one on, say, Monday. Then I'm going to do the lighter rep range on Thursday. So I'm going to give myself ample time to recover from that first bout of heavy lifting. In the meantime, I'm going to do active recovery. I'm still going to do things like swimming, cycling, running. You can do yoga, Pilates, whatever. Anything that's light and that's nourishing to your body. So that's the first one for power. Now, what most people want is to mobilize fat and burn fat and look good. So that's the one where we're going to go 3 times a week. We're going to alternate. One day we're going to do that mid-heavy range, the 8 to 12 reps on Monday. Wednesday we're going to go in that high rep range of 25 to 30 to 40. And this is all total body movements. And then Friday we're going to go back to that 8 to 10 to 12 rep range. That's week number 1. The following week you're just going to flip-flop that. So you're going to start with that high rep range on Monday. Then Wednesday you go to that medium 8 to 10 to 12 rep range. And then Friday you go back to the high rep range. And you can alternate that for about 6 to 8 weeks. Varying time under tension, varying tempo, varying the type of lifts that you do.
Right.
And that's going to give you the desired result. You're going to be moving, you're going to get the strength, you're going to get a little bit of power, but for that goal, and it's not gender specific, you're going to maximize the muscle tone and the fat loss. So that's what most people are after. And those are the 2 basic ones that I use.